And a good Tuesday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. Might be tuning in because of a Facebook post that I did just make, and that is the newest news that we do have here at the 11 a.m. hour. We do have a weather impact alert, and that is going to be in place for late tomorrow night, late Wednesday night, all the way into the morning hours on Thursday. This is going to be for the potential for some strong to severe storms, which for some strong storms, it does look pretty likely, but will we see anything in the way of a severe thunderstorm is going to be the million-dollar question. So we'll go over the timing of that, we'll go over the intensity, how much rainfall we're going to see, and the main impacts associated with this severe weather here in your extended forecast. So here's a look at your headlines. Warm and dry for the next 2 days. Really, I would just go ahead and say the next 2 afternoons, really, because we won't be dry the entirety of your Wednesday. Showers and storms rolling in tomorrow night into Thursday morning, and your rain chances will hang around as we go into the weekend ahead. So there's a lot of moving parts, basically summing all that up with your forecast that we do have ahead. Here's a look around the quad. We do have some upper level clouds, but overall it is a bit of a breezy afternoon according to the Georgia National Fairgrounds here, where we have these flags continuing to blow from left to right, indicating somewhat of a southerly component to your winds, but it is a forecast once again dominated by sunshine, and that's going to continue to contribute to our warm-up as we head throughout the late morning and into the early afternoon hours. 74 in Macon, see how that number compares to the eastern United States, where it is much cooler up to the north and the northwest, dealing with some 40s and some 50s, even a 30 all the way up there in Denver, Colorado. So I believe this is going to be behind our frontal boundary that will begin its passage through as we go into the next 24 to kind of 36 hours as we get into later Wednesday. So behind that frontal boundary is a cooler air mass that is kind of pushing down from Canada, but down here in the east and the deep south, we are dealing with some mixed 60s and some 70s, even an 80 over in Laredo, 80 down in Orlando, probably somewhere in the mid 80s as we can see that yellow and orange shade get a bit darker as you go farther down into the Florida Peninsula. So down here in the southeast corner, we do see all across Georgia and South Carolina, Alabama, even into Mississippi. Once again, mixed 60s and 70s, but for the most part, we're dealing with some lower 70s all across the state of Georgia. 63 in Dothan, so I imagine there might be a patch of some cloud cover over there that might be attributed to, say, maybe something in the way of blocking your sunshine, blocking that solar radiation, keeping the numbers just a little bit lower. But 74 in Macon, not the warmest of the bunch here in central Georgia. I think that title goes to McRae, sitting at 76, along with the 76 in Swainsboro. So somewhere in the lower half of the 70s for the most part. One lone upper 60 all the way over there in Thomaston. And then, of course, those two areas above 75 degrees in Swainsboro and in McRae. So the breeze has picked up just a touch. We're talking about a widespread light breeze that continues to come out of that southerly direction. So that direction of the wind is going to be very important for your forecast here over the next couple of days, really just over the next day or two. But it will continue to push a steady stream of more and more moisture into the forecast. The more moisture you have in the forecast, that's going to result in some better rain chances, whether that's going to be the pop-up nature of those rain chances or that is going to be maybe interacting with an incoming frontal boundary that is going to be in place. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the humidity levels, where you can see that we actually have a little bit of color back in this graphic. Some of that light green shade indicating that we have a little bit of moisture, but it's kind of in that not bad range. And obviously the dry forecast is where you're not really noticing that moisture whatsoever. The muggy is going to be that air that you can wear that we talk about during the summertime months. So we are coming up in that time frame where we are going to be talking about that super swampy air that you can wear. But not present as of right now. It does look like areas over to the west and up to the north in the portion of Georgia are not necessarily dealing with as humid of an atmosphere. But take a look at this. These numbers are a little bit higher than what we saw yesterday, say scattered about the 40s. We even saw some dew point temperatures still hovering in the 30s. Well, we have some numbers in the 60s, 63-degree dew point in Dublin and in Wrightsville, scattered about the upper 50s over to the east, and those numbers a little bit lower back over to the west and the northwest, where we're not seeing as prominent and as widespread of a light green, that kind of mint green shade. So there's a little bit of moisture to work with. Satellite and radar image right now is mostly clear all across central Georgia. Some high-level clouds over to the west and the southwest. But maybe we have a light greener dot or two that does try to pop up as we go throughout the rest of today. But the entire state of Georgia is kind of just right on the cusp of the edge of all this widespread cloud cover and all these widespread showers. Even it looks to be some thunderstorms all the way up here in the Memphis area, right there in the corner of Mississippi, Arkansas, and Tennessee. So nothing really in the near vicinity of us, but that image will be a lot more active as we go into this time tomorrow. So let's talk some numbers as we go into the rest of your Cinco de Mayo afternoon, because obviously this is a forecast today that many of you are going to have some outdoor plans for. And I would go ahead and recommend and give you a bit of a tease for what's in store later this afternoon. I think it's going to be some great outdoor patio weather. So if you have any plans, say, to go out to eat with friends and family later on today, might I even recommend taking a seat outside to enjoy some of the beautiful weather ahead. 80 degrees was your high temperature yesterday, so 3 degrees below that average high temperature of 83 degrees. And then 41 was what we started out at, well below that average low of 56 degrees, 15 degrees below average, but we saw a temperature increase of 39 degrees from that morning low into that afternoon high. And as a matter of fact, your morning low temperature, it flirted with the record once again. It's kind of been something that's been overshadowed because our main focus of the forecast has been what's coming in as we go into tomorrow night and into Thursday morning. But as of yesterday, we were taking a look at yet the Almanac data from the day before, which was going to be on Sunday. We had a temperature of 39 degrees for a morning low, which doesn't seem that significant, but 40 degrees is actually the record low temperature that we have seen for the entire month of May all time. So as of this past Sunday, we have a new record lowest temperature that we've seen in the month of May, and that number going to be 39 degrees. But obviously a pretty similar feeling start to yesterday as to what we did have on Sunday. 93 for a high temperature. That was set back in 1902. Record high temperature, rather, I should say. Your record low was set back in 1971. It was a day without rainfall, so the year departure of rain did go down a little bit farther into that negative category, but still roughly in the neighborhood of around 6 and about 1/4 of an inch of rain below average, just a little bit above that threshold. Sunrise 6:45 a.m. yesterday, and 8:19 was when that sun finally did set. It is very, very enjoyable. We are actually making our way near 14 hours of some daylight as we go into the next couple of weeks, and as we officially cross over into January. I think that's going to be the time frame that we finally do cross that threshold for 14 hours of some daylight on a day-to-day basis. May high temperatures, been a story of blue boxes. And yes, we hit a high temperature of 80 yesterday. That doesn't necessarily feel like it should be associated with the blue box. It was definitely still a pretty warm afternoon, and it felt pretty pleasant. However, it was a couple degrees below average, so that continues the streak of 4 days in a row. Actually, 5 days in a row if we take it all the way back to the last day of April, which you will see here on this graphic, because I do remember talking about that last day of April. I said it's kind of funny how we're ending the month of April on a below average day, considering that 21 out of the 30 days in the month of April were above average. The 80s were no stranger to us here in Central Georgia last month, even a 91 that popped up on April 17th. So it was a very warm stretch of weather in April, which makes sense because we barely had anything in the way of rainfall throughout most of the month. However, now that we are kickstarting the beginning of the month of May, we are definitely starting it out on a much cooler note, where we'll flash back to this graphic real quick. Stretch of 70s into 80 yesterday, but will today mark the first day that we could pop up a red box on this calendar graphic? It remains to be seen, but it does look like we have a pretty good likelihood of at least seeing a gray box today, so a near normal number, but there is the possibility of us seeing an above average number. But not according to this graphic. This mediagram right here, hour by hour temperatures are peaking somewhere in the low 80s as we go into the middle of the afternoon. I think our numbers are going to climb a little bit higher than that. We did see that as of yesterday. I had 79 for a forecasted high. We hit the 80-degree mark. So I'm kind of going along with that same guidance throughout today. 84 for a high temperature, mostly sunny skies, and 84 degrees would just be 1 degree above your average high temperature of 83 degrees for this time of year. So now, back near average, southerly breeze, 5 to 10 miles per hour, and like I mentioned, a little bit warmer than what we did see yesterday, but overall kind of feeling the same. So as we progress throughout the rest of this afternoon and evening, there's little to nothing in the way of cloud cover. Some future view model runs have been trying to pop up a stray sprinkle or two. I'm not putting too much stock into that because, yes, we did talk about it. There's a little bit of moisture in the forecast, but I don't think the sprinkle chances really come to fruition until tomorrow when we have a little bit more moisture in the forecast compared to what we do have for the rest of today. So moral of the story is, if you have any outdoor plans throughout this afternoon, this evening, maybe you're doing a celebration at home for Cinco de Mayo, or you're going out to eat with friends and family, it's going to be splendid weather to sit outside, enjoy some wonderful food and fellowship with some friends and family. A great forecast. Could not really dial it up better weather-wise for this Taco Tuesday, for this Cinco de Mayo, all the festivities that will be taking place throughout today. So now let's go into your Wednesday, where it is going to be a partially clear start. We'll have a few clouds in the forecast throughout the morning hours, but as we go into the afternoon, there's one thing that you're noticing, and it's the wind arrows. They're shifting a little bit in terms of the direction. They are being pulled in from the southwest as opposed to the dead south that we are seeing throughout today. This helps us get a little bit more extra moisture in the forecast, because down to the southwest of us, that's going to be the direction from the northern Gulf. So that is going to be some very humid air that is going to be associated with the Gulf. And directly down to the south, that's where we still are interacting with at least the Florida Peninsula. So it's more so a landmass directly to the south as opposed to a warm body of water that's going to be over to the southwest. So that's why I'm anticipating that steady increase in more moisture content. And along with more moisture in the forecast, I think that would be enough in order to sprout at least a couple of scattered sprinkles. It looks like the chances of those are looking a lot better over to the west as opposed to here in central Georgia. So about a 10% chance of rain as we go throughout your Wednesday afternoon, that is. But for the most part, we are going to remain dry, and there's still plenty of sunshine, and that's going to help lead to a pretty substantial warm up in terms of your high temperatures tomorrow, even more so than what we will see today. Obviously, there's a couple question marks that we were just talking about. Will we hit that average mark today? Will we go 1 degree above it, or will we fall short and follow suit with what the Meteogram said at 82 degrees? Well, tomorrow, not going to have any question marks about it. It will be an above average day, and dare I even say a bit of a hot afternoon, but I don't anticipate really too much in the way of, say, temperatures that could flirt with the 90-degree mark. I think we are going to be pretty steady somewhere around 87 or 88 for a high temperature tomorrow, paired up with a pretty steady, maybe even a borderline gusty breeze that continues to come out of the south and the southwest. But with the humidity back in the forecast, I don't think this is going to be one of those breezes that necessarily makes it feel a bit more pleasant outside. I think it is going to be one of those breezes that is kind of blowing that humidity in your face, so maybe adding a bit of extra insult to injury, if you will. So there's plenty of active weather up in the northern portion of the state already at the 5 o'clock hour. So you can see it's not quite down to the metro Atlanta area, but it's more so in the North Georgia mountains as you go farther up I-75. But the rain does creep farther down into the metro area and eventually right on the doorstep of central Georgia as we go into the late night hours tomorrow night on Wednesday. So this is kind of looking like the earliest point for when we could get some of the active weather started in the forecast. I do believe that this is kind of a pretty good basis for a starting point for when the weather is going to be a bit more active, around 10 to 11 p.m. on Wednesday night. Starting at the earliest, we could see this run a little bit later. It could even run just a little bit earlier in nature, maybe closer to around 8 or 9 o'clock. But I have seen consistent agreement amongst the last couple of model runs here on FutureView that is showing around 10 to 11 a.m. creeping into our northwestern most counties here in central Georgia. So Upson, Lamar, Monroe, Jasper counties, those areas that we're always talking about, kind of dealing with the rain first and foremost when an incoming front does come through. Those areas are looking to maybe hear things get a bit loud outside, maybe see quite a bit of a light show in between the blinds. But this is going to be the time frame that many of you are very likely winding down for the night, getting ready to go to bed and get that rest so you can get up for work the next day. So that is going to mark the beginning of this rainmaker. While obviously many of you are going to be fast asleep as this line does continue to progress further and further down to the south and the southeast. So I went all the way out to the 4 a.m. hour because I think this picture shows what is going on with this line of some rain best right here. So going ahead and talking about the time frame first and foremost, the overnight time frame, that is going to indicate where your temperatures are beginning their cool down overnight. Now, they're not going to get mighty chilly like what we were talking about the last couple of mornings, but they are going to be cooler than what they will be in the afternoon. So that's why we are seeing some disorganization and some breaking apart of this definitive line of some showers and some storms as we progress farther into the early morning hours on Thursday, but still dealing with our fair share of not only widely scattered showers, but also a lot of pockets of some heavy rainfall rates, which are not only going to give us a whole lot of rain in a select few areas in central Georgia, but that's also going to be associated with some gustier winds. That's going to be associated with frequent lightning. That's going to be associated with some louder rumbles of thunder that you are hearing more frequently. So, of course, we are looking at some of those reds and those dark reds being indicative of some thunderstorms. That's what happens when you have a lot of humidity back in the forecast like we were talking about. So that southerly breeze throughout not only yesterday, but today, and the southwesterly winds throughout tomorrow, it's just kind of priming our atmosphere for this frontal boundary as it begins its approach through. So while it is going to be an overnight timing frame and it is expecting some weakening, some disorganization, I'm not expecting all the activity to completely dissipate whatsoever, because that moisture is going to have exactly what this frontal boundary does need for some heavier rainfall rates and some more widespread precipitation. But as we go into the late morning time frame, I think around 9 to 10 a.m., so right after that morning commute is over, that's when we really look at these rain chances to taper off. I think we're dealing with at least some spotty light showers for the remainder of the morning into around lunchtime. But as we head to lunchtime and after into the afternoon, first thing you are noticing are some backside winds behind this frontal boundary. It is going to be a breezy afternoon, but we're actually seeing clearing in the cloud cover and almost all the rain chances out of here as we go into the afternoon on Thursday. So while your rain chances are going to be for specific days, I want you to pay attention to that time frame. Starting around 10 to 11 on Wednesday night, mainly for our northwestern counties, all the way until we get to around 9 to 10 a.m. That's going to be the period where we are looking at widespread showers and some thunderstorms in the forecast. After that, we're really not talking about much in the way of rain for the second half of your Thursday, even just before we even get into the second half of the day. So in terms of your evening commute home on Thursday, your Thursday evening dinner plans, you're looking good to go. All of this weather is not going to impact you throughout the second half of your Thursday. And as we go all the way into as early as 4 a.m. on Friday, we might have our fair share of some cloud cover in the forecast, but then your rain chances as we go into your Friday are going to be a whole different story. So now let's talk about your rainfall amounts. How much rain are we going to get out of this? It's been a pretty bad drought if you missed this extended forecast the last couple of weeks. Well, this looks very beneficial, but we don't necessarily want to see totals like this all at one time. So we do have some very dry and some very loose soil. So obviously that is going to allow for maybe this water to not be saturated as quickly in nature. So it is going to puddle up in a lot of areas that we do have some more substantial rainfall totals. More guidance from this model has showed that areas to the west are looking to receive some higher rainfall totals than areas, say, farther over to the east. But this is definitely the range of the highest totals that I have seen out of any model run throughout this morning. Most areas hovering around 1 to 2 inches of rain, and we have plenty of spots that are totaling around 2.5, closer to 2 3/4 of an inch. How about 3.3 inches of rain over in Thomaston? Now, like I always say with this graphic, do not get locked into what this specific location does say in terms of rainfall amounts over the next couple of days. This is merely highlighting the potential, kind of the range that we are looking at. Do we have the range and do we have the possibility to see widespread totals over 1 inch? Yes, we definitely do. And I think that 1 to 2 inch sweet spot, that's going to be exactly what you need in order to continue to improve some of the drought conditions, but not get too much to where it could result in, say, an isolated flooding risk, because that's what about 3 inches of rain over the course of about an 8 to 10 hour period could do, especially in some areas that don't drain well or some low-lying areas near some bodies of water. Maybe you have an area that doesn't necessarily drain well that's over close by a retention pond, over by a creek. Well, that is going to allow for the puddling up and the ponding of that water and some isolated flash flooding. I have a creek that runs through my backyard, and we also have some beavers that do like to clog it up as well. So when we get just about 2, maybe 2.5 inches of rain, something like that, it looks like a whole lot more than that, because you have water that is falling farther upstream that also has to come downstream. And if you have anything like a beaver dam or, say, a couple leaves that are clogging a drainage pipe, then of course that's going to result in the ponding of that water. So that's what we are going to be on the lookout for. more so up in the northwestern portion of the state. This is a look at your excessive rainfall outlook, which I kind of talk about occasionally, but I mean, hey, it's been a while since we've been talking about excessive rainfall. We've barely been talking about rainfall in general as of recently. So this is going to be the day 2 and the day 3 excessive rainfall outlooks. There's one in place for your Tuesday right now. That's for areas over to the west of us. This yellow shade surrounded by the light green color, that's going to be the day 2 outlook included for tomorrow. And then this sliver of some light green that extends over into west central Georgia, that's going to be your day 3 outlook. So I went ahead and combined all of them and highlighted what we are talking about in terms of the flash flooding risk. So that marginal risk, think about it as the same way as an SPC outlook. When we talk about those severe weather categories, level 1 through 5, it's just level 1 through 4 when it comes to your excessive rainfall outlook. Not really much of a risk when it does come to that marginal risk where we do have the potential for isolated flash flooding. Again, those low-lying areas near bodies of water, areas that don't drain well. But scattered flash flooding, that looks to be present in most of the northwestern portion of the state. And that's going to come courtesy of thunderstorms that are training. So it quite literally means what it does sound like. Training means going over the same area in the same area over and over and over again. Kind of similar to how train cars go over the same spot on a railroad track over and over and over again. So that's going to produce some localized heavy rainfall amounts, and that can start to puddle up on the ground. And of course, that is going to be something we're on the lookout for. However, it's not really the main potential threat. I think your gusty winds are really going to be what packs the main punch associated with some strong to maybe even severe thunderstorms that we do see. This is the day 3 storm outlook. There's a day 2 storm outlook that does show the same risk for areas of northwestern Georgia, even a level 2 that does creep into the northwest portion of the state. So once again, emphasizing the fact that that line is going to weaken and disorganize a little bit as it comes down into our neck of the woods, but everyone in central Georgia is still under a level 1 out of 5 risk, where we do have the potential for some stronger to even severe storms. Of course, the isolated flooding going to be of a potential impact. And also with all these systems, we always talk about it, there is a non-zero tornado threat. And we did have, of course, a level 1 back when we had many tornado outbreaks back into March, but the parameters are not looking that high for it as of right now. And that's something we obviously will continue to keep you updated. If there is anything in the way of a tornado warning, just like I was doing as of about a month and a half ago, we'll pop straight onto air and we'll keep you posted. But that is going to bring me to another point that I do have, kind of summing things up at the very end of this about what you need to do pertaining to this weather impact alert. So didn't get a chance to actually add the red boxes onto this graphic, and obviously your rain chances, I think we're going to tweak those just a little bit because 10% is a bit misleading. That 10% is really for the afternoon hours on Wednesday. Now, if I'm going to include the last 2 hours of your Wednesday, say 11 and 12 o'clock, then that would probably get bumped up to more so about a 30 or a 40% chance of seeing a shower or a thunderstorm. But I think that's what we're going to do to kind of highlight the better rain chances that are around the late night hours on Wednesday. So for any dinner plans that you do have, the earlier, the better throughout your Wednesday. 88 for a high temperature. So like I said, we are priming the atmosphere with warm temperatures and more humidity ahead of that frontal boundary pushing in. And then these rain chances throughout your Thursday. Notice how the thunderstorm icon is going to be a little bit to the left and ahead of the sunshine because sunshine will be available and it will be just a partly cloudy into your Thursday forecast. So what we'll probably do for your Thursday is highlight the potential for rain really just being in that morning window as we kind of go into this afternoon and we do the fine tuning with the forecast specifically. But it's also going to be a much warmer start on Thursday morning. So if you're heading out the door after all that heavy rain has already passed over your area, you're going to notice much warmer temperatures than say somewhere down in the upper half of the 40s, even the upper 30s, which we did see on Sunday morning. That is going to be a very substantial temperature increase, somewhere in the neighborhood of around 25 degrees warmer on Thursday morning compared to what we did see on Sunday morning and as of yesterday morning. So I did talk about the humidity, the moisture content in the atmosphere. You can see a big wide swath of some dark green is present over to the west of us throughout tomorrow afternoon. And believe it or not, that dark green color does surge up into central Georgia, courtesy of what? The southwesterly winds. How much have I talked about that already? So once again, we are pulling up that warm and that humid air from the northern Gulf, and that is going to continue to crowd the picture. But this kind of looks to be when rain chances are actually tapering off, believe it or not, here in central Georgia. It is going to get out of the picture pretty quick as this front does push through, and it does push all that more humid air down to the south over across the state line into Florida. But that frontal boundary is looking to stay put there as we go into your Friday, which could create some more on and off rain chances. So kind of like what we were talking about as of Friday into Saturday's rain chances last weekend. We could look at some form of a low pressure center to establish itself on that stalled boundary, and that boundary acts as a conveyor belt. So that rain moves from west to east. Some of that could creep into southern central Georgia. Not too much model agreement. Again, we have been not really necessarily, or actually doing the exact opposite of bragging on these long-range models as of Friday, Saturday, all the way into Sunday. But what I would plan on is at least some rain chances for your Friday and Saturday plans. I think Friday might actually get away with having some mostly dry weather, but we could have some rain chances move in overnight into early Saturday morning. And then we go Saturday night into Sunday. And of course, Sunday is going to be important because it is Mother's Day. Well, it is not looking like a very conducive environment to have any outdoor plans to celebrate Mom on Sunday because widespread, pretty good agreement, obviously not the best, but it does look like a better chance of rain on Sunday as opposed to what we will have throughout your Friday and your Saturday. And it looks like we are going to hold on to those on and off rain chances throughout most of the day on Sunday and maybe even all the way into Monday before another frontal boundary does attempt to move through. And I think that one will finally push all the moisture out of the forecast and we'll settle into a dry stretch of weather as we go into the beginning of the midweek next week. So the reason why I'm more confident in Mother's Day having better rain chances than Friday and Saturday, it is once again, guess what, because of the humidity content. We are going to see that front pass through on Thursday. It's ushering in a slightly drier air mass, but of course areas down to the south closer to where that boundary does stall out at are going to have some slightly more humid air. But then we start to see a very quick rebound in the moisture content. We could even be more humid, as we go into your Sunday afternoon, and that's what's going to lead to some more widespread rain chances, another wave of some rain moving in from west over to east. And then finally, as the front does push through on Monday, we'll start to dry out, but some rain chances could hold on into the beginning of next week. In terms of the rainfall, these long-range models are obviously not picking apart the totals that you did see on the short-range models, but I would still highlight the potential for some areas seeing around 1 to 2 inches of rain over the course of this rainmaker coming in Wednesday into Thursday. But also, there is even the potential that we tack on another inch of rain or so by the time we head into the beginning of next week. The GFS model is kind of following suit, maybe some totals that are closer to an inch as we go throughout the next couple of days. But then as we add on this weekend's rainfall totals, we could all in all maybe see even close to 3 inches of rain. Northern Georgia going to see a whole lot more than that. It does look like it appears to be. So your weather impact alert, it is going to get going sometime around 9 to 10 p.m. at the earliest tomorrow night. It goes all throughout the overnight hours and into the early morning hours on Thursday before around 9 to 10 a.m. We finally put an end to that as the heaviest rain does move out. The main impact we're on the lookout for are strong to severe storms where gusty winds are looking to be the main impact, but we'll also be on the lookout for some isolated flash flooding. And we'll also, of course, keep our eyes peeled for any possible rotation that wants to try to spin up within this line of some showers and storms. So the biggest thing that you need to do is have a way to get possible warnings. Go ahead and make sure that you're doing that throughout today, throughout tomorrow, and make sure that you have a way that that warning is going to wake you up. The time frame is overnight. Like I said, the beginning of this is going to start right when you're kind of falling asleep, winding down for the night. So make sure that you have a way to get those possible warnings. If nothing wakes you up during the overnight hours, you wake up to maybe even a peak of sunshine, or you just wake up to plenty of wet ground, then no harm, no foul. You didn't have to worry about anything. But if we are to get a severe weather warning, just like we were talking about at the beginning of March. Obviously, a lot of that was coming in maybe before many of you woke up and your phone was buzzing, your phone was going off. You need to make sure that that system is going to awake you if there is to be something in the way of a severe warning overnight into the early morning hours. And then drive with caution, especially try to avoid those isolated areas of some flooding, some ponding. It's important to remember to turn around, don't drown. A lot of times those puddles of water can be a little bit deeper than they appear. And then as far as your temperatures go, 7-day forecast is a bit of a roller coaster ride. 88 for a high tomorrow, all the way down into the mid-70s on Friday, but then a very quick temperature rebound back into the mid-80s as we go into the end of the weekend and we get more moisture back in the forecast. Better rain chances on Sunday into Monday as opposed to Friday and Saturday, where the rain chances are still up in the air. But I think our best shot at rain is still going to be Wednesday night into the morning hours on Thursday, where that weather impact alert is going to be in place for. But nothing to really immediately worry about. I hope you continue to enjoy the rest of your Cinco de Mayo afternoon and evening as we have some beautiful weather out there. But go ahead and make sure that you have a way to get those warnings Wednesday night into Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 11 a.m.